Okay, hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Purinya Chopaka. I am Learning and Assessment Consultant from Cambridge. We're really pleased to have you with us for today's CELTA webinar, and we hope you will find this session useful and engaging. I will now hand things back to Paravut to get us started. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paranya. So my name is Paravut. Hi, everybody, and especially the speakers. I will be your moderator for today's session, and I'm glad to have everybody joining us today. And I hope these sessions will be useful and helpful for those who still have doubts that whether this kind of programs is worth of an investment. Okay, so I think we can start with the first speaker. So our first speaker is Tim. Tim has worked in ELT for many years in a variety of roles, including teacher, teacher's trainer, academic manager, materials writer, business manager. Since 2013, he has been the global manager, teacher development at Cambridge, where he is responsible for Cambridge teaching qualifications, including CELTA, Delta, and TKT. And our second speaker is Brian. So Brian has over 10 years of ELT experience at IC Cambodia, teaching general English, IELTS preparations, EAP, and young learner programs, with extensive experience in teacher development and CELTA training. Without further ado, let's get started. And now I would like to hand over to our first speaker, Tim.
So you can see everything correctly now. Good. So yeah, as Paravut says, my name's Tim, and I work in Cambridge as the manager for the teaching qualifications. And today I'm going to talk you through CELTA, what it is, why it's valuable, how it all works, and why we call it the gold standard teaching qualification. So hopefully you'll be clear about that in a few minutes, and then I'm sure there'll be time for questions later in the webinar. So in Cambridge, we offer a range of qualifications and professional development for teachers, including these qualifications and our publishing for professional learning and development. Why do we do this? Why do we choose to do these things? A number of reasons, but the fundamental one is that we think that better teaching leads to better outcomes for learners. So it's about training teachers so that they can deliver more effective training and better learning for the learners. That's really the core reason, and that's how it fits together with all of the learning materials that we provide as well. And by taking qualifications and using professional learning and development materials, it helps you to build the skills and, very importantly, the confidence that you need in the classroom. So both skills and confidence are really key. And our qualifications are recognised by thousands of employers around the world. So they've endorsed them as being the most appropriate qualifications for teachers when they're recruiting. All of our qualifications are based on the Cambridge Teaching Framework. You can find all of this freely available on cambridge.org, the public website. And this underpins all of the syllabuses of our teaching qualifications. So it's a framework where you can identify where you are currently in your development as a teacher and identify where you want to get to and how to do that. So it helps you to assess where you are, where you want to get to, and what the pathway is to move from one to the other. And it has the 4 stages of development, from foundation to expert, and the 5 areas there. CELTA is particularly in the teaching, learning and assessment area, which is really the core of this professional learning and development. The full range of our qualifications for teachers, the Teaching Knowledge Test, or TKT, which is for new and experienced teachers. It gives them the opportunity to prepare and develop their knowledge, and then to take the test to demonstrate or prove their teaching knowledge. And it consists of 5 modular tests, all of them in the similar format, 80 questions over 80 minutes. and there'll be a digital version of that coming out later this year. CELTA, which we're going to focus on today, which is, again, for a range of teachers, can be for new teachers starting out, teachers with no experience previously, can be for teachers with some experience but wanting to get a certificate, a certification, and to develop their skills, or for people who are moving from one type of teaching into teaching English, for example. And it's a course-based qualification, so there's no exam. You take the course and you're assessed during the course. And similar to that is the DELTA, the Diploma in English Language Teaching, which is similar to CELTA, but for people with more experience. Very often teachers will take CELTA and then go on to take DELTA several years later, a couple of years or more into their teaching experience. So again, a course-based qualification. So that's how CELTA fits into a wider offer for teachers. CELTA is called in full, the Certificate in Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages, which is not that easy to say. So CELTA is a much more common way to refer to it. So why take CELTA? I won't play the audio for this, but if you look on our website, you can find testimonials from lots of previous candidates, people who've taken CELTA and are telling us why they did that and what they got out of it. So I'll leave you to go and look at that on your own. But they share their experience of taking the course, why they decided to take it, and what the benefits were for them. A couple of quotes, though, from some of the candidates. So one person here saying, it changed her job prospects overnight, changed the way employers viewed me. So very clear endorsement that taking the CELTA made it much better, much easier for her to apply for positions as an English language teacher. And from another teacher who was already a teacher in this case, who was not new to teaching, but she says it was a life-changing experience, helped her feel much more prepared, much more confident in dealing with her students' needs. So that kind of goes to what I was saying about how it can be for both new teachers and experienced teachers. Can all get some extremely valuable development from taking CELTA. And as I mentioned, CELTA is recognised by thousands of teaching employers around the world. We did a survey a few years ago. This is slightly out of date, actually, because we very recently updated it with a new survey. But from the previous survey, the qualification most international adverts for teachers of English ask for is CELTA. 70% of adverts are asking for CELTA by name, specifically asking for CELTA or an equivalent. In the UK, something like 90% of adverts for these language centres. In the UAE and Saudi Arabia, 72%. So around a lot of regions of the world, people name CELTA as a qualification that they would like their applicants to have. And it's accredited by the UK qualifications body, Ofqual, at level 5 on the qualifications framework. So it's very well known, very well respected, used by international employers, institutions such as the British Council and International House in their recruitment as well. So who is it for? If you're starting out as a teacher, you're thinking of going into a career in teaching, then CELTA helps you get started. It gives you the basics, it gives you the hands-on practice, so you're doing teaching in the classroom to give you the confidence to go into a classroom wherever you start your career. It doesn't make you a complete teacher after doing a CELTA course. It doesn't mean you're the finished article as a perfect teacher, but it gives you everything you need to get started and begin your career and begin your development. If you're already teaching, and you want to develop your skills further, in many cases, there are people who have done a short online course, for example, and found that's not really enough to get them started in their teaching. They feel that something's missing. In some cases, people who've done things like a university qualification in teaching, but it hasn't had the practical classroom aspect, then they find CELTA is hugely beneficial in developing those classroom skills in communicative English teaching. And you'll develop this range of techniques and skills, as well as understanding some of the principles that are behind them. It's also often taken by people looking to change careers. So if you've been working in a completely different field and you want to become an English teacher, perhaps you want to go and work in another country, you want to go and work in English teaching for various reasons, then it's ideal for taking a short qualification that will give you that training and confidence. So the core of the course, what is on a CELTA course? What will you actually be doing if you take CELTA? So all CELTA courses, wherever you take them, they all follow the CELTA syllabus from Cambridge and include a minimum of 120 hours of supervised study, plus on top of that, 80 hours of supported self-study. So around 200 hours of study in total. And some of the key elements of that: 6 hours of directed observation of lessons. So you'll be watching experienced teachers and learning by seeing what they do and talking over what they've done in their lessons. Some of those may be on video, some of them live. Your trainers on the course will supervise you in planning lessons. Typically at the beginning of the course, they'll be giving more support. They'll be supervising more directly. As the course goes on and you've developed these skills further, they'll do a bit less of that and they'll expect you to work more independently. And right at the heart of this is the 6 hours of assessed teaching practice supervised by your course trainer. So you teach 6 hours, or a minimum of 6 hours, of actual teaching with real students in a classroom, either face-to-face or online. And you're assessed as you do that. That's typically 8 or 9 actual instances of lessons, beginning from right at the early on in the course, where you may do a short section of a lesson, say 15 minutes, and then developing to longer lessons as the course goes on. You also observe your fellow trainees when they're doing their teaching practice. So in the room, when you're teaching, the other trainees will be watching you, and vice versa. When they're teaching, you'll be watching them. And then you share your experience and what you've learnt after that in feedback, as well as getting feedback from the trainer themselves. And you also have tutorials during the course and consultation and more informal support, as well as the formal tutorials with your trainers as you go along. So you develop a very close relationship, usually, with your fellow trainees and the trainers on the course. So how the course works, you have typically around 12 candidates on a course, and for input sessions where the trainer is delivering content, they're explaining things, they're getting you to try things out, you're working together to learn about how to do things, techniques, then those input sessions usually are with the whole group. But then you're divided into 2 groups, the teaching practice groups, teaching practice group 1, teaching practice group 2, where you have 1 trainer working with 6 candidates. So it's a small group of candidates working with 1 trainer who supervises your teaching practice. And if it's a short course of 4 weeks, then for the first 2 weeks, you're in these groups. And then in the second 2 weeks, you swap trainers. So you get a different experience, slightly different perspective, perhaps, on the teaching. So for half the course, you're with 1 trainer. For half the course, you're with the other trainer for the teaching practice groups. So it gives you more variety of feedback and of expertise. So the various elements then, you have the training input, the sessions where you're working together in a group, the trainer's giving you some content perhaps, you're discussing things, You're working together to understand and develop your knowledge. The peer observations, where you're watching your fellow trainees. Observation of experienced teachers delivering lessons. You have guided self-study, where you're researching, perhaps researching some aspect of teaching. You're using various sources to find information and inform your lesson planning and your assignment writing. You write assignments, so there are typically 4 assignments on a course, sometimes 3, but usually 4 assignments that you write during the course. And the tutorial support, and those are the main elements. But then at the center of all of this is the lesson planning, the lesson delivery, the teaching practice. So you have lesson planning and this cycle of planning with trainer support, observed teaching, and reflection after your teaching, and then peer and trainer feedback. So you work through this cycle. After each, you plan for your lesson, you deliver your lesson, you're observed delivering it, you reflect on how it went, and you get feedback and discuss your lesson with your trainer and with your fellow trainees. And that's kind of at the center of how the whole CELTA course works. In terms of assessment, there is no exam on the CELTA course, so you're assessed throughout the course, and it's based on your progress from the beginning to the end of the course. So all of your lessons are assessed. The ones towards the end are slightly more heavily weighted, I would say, as they're longer lessons. So you do your 6 hours of teaching practice. You also do the 4 written assignments, and to pass the course, you need to pass on both the teaching practice and the written assignments. There are 3 passing grades: Pass A, Pass B, and Pass. Typically, the majority of people get a Pass, with a slightly smaller number getting B, and only a few people getting a Pass A, typically. But that can vary, of course, from course to course. It is possible to fail a CELTA course because it's an assessed course. Of course, there's a possibility of failing, but it's pretty rare. Occasionally, people withdraw during a course for personal reasons, perhaps. The majority of people who complete the course do pass, but there are a few exceptions to that. So how can you take a CELTA course? There are 3 modes that are available. Some centres do all of them, some do only 1 or 2 of these. But the 3 modes that you can take the course are completely face-to-face, completely online, or as a mix of face-to-face and online. And the difference between those is mainly about how the teaching practice takes place. So if you do a face-to-face course, all of your teaching practice will be in a physical classroom with actual students in front of you. So all of the teaching practice is with live groups of learners, but in a face-to-face course, you're actually there in the classroom with the students. If you're doing an online course, then all of your teaching will be in an online learning environment. So it's still live, it's still with real groups of learners, but you're all doing this online. If you're doing a blended course or a mixed mode course, then it includes lessons both face-to-face in the classroom and online. Which mode you prefer and which one you choose depends on a number of elements. It could be what's available near you, where you want to study. If you want to go to a centre which only offers face-to-face, then that's and you have the ability to be there for a face-to-face course, then that's right for you. If there isn't a centre near you, if you can't travel to stay where there's a centre, then online might make more sense. So the physical aspects are important, of course, the logistics. But it could also be that if you expect that you're going to be teaching mainly online after the course, then it makes sense to do the course online. If you're expecting to be teaching in face-to-face classes, then doing a face-to-face course makes more sense. So there's various things to consider, and that can be different for everybody. What kind of things are you actually studying and learning about? So there are 5 key topics on a CELTA course. Learners and teachers and the teaching and learning context, so about how languages are learnt, how learners learn, how teachers can teach, and what influences those things. Language analysis, so understanding how language works, being aware of the various systems around language, grammar, phonetics, etc. The skills, the 4 skills, reading, listening, speaking, and writing, both how they're learnt, how to teach them, and planning and resources for different teaching contexts. So how can you plan lessons, different ways of planning lessons, different ways of teaching, essentially, and the resources that you can use to develop those lessons, and how they can be applied in different situations. And developing teaching skills and professionalism, so looking at what's expected of the teacher, how teachers are expected to behave, and also how to develop yourself as a teacher, both during the course and beyond. When you go into working in a school, how do you continue your development beyond the course? So whichever mode or format of course you choose, you still get the same hands-on teaching experience, just in a different setting. It's always with real learners. You learn the principles of effective teaching and, crucially, really, the range of practical skills that will help you get started in the classroom. So how do you go about taking a CELTA course? You've decided that you want to take CELTA. It's the right course for you. How do you take it? You decide which mode will suit you. Would you prefer to do face-to-face or online, or combination of the two? Find the centre that offers the course you want. So look at the centres in Cambodia. What do they offer? When do they run courses? And then you apply to the centre. So from Cambridge, we don't run courses. All of our courses are run through authorised centres, such as ACE in Cambodia, and you apply directly to them. So you need to look at their information to find out what's available, the dates and the conditions around the courses. Very common question is, how much does it cost? Again, this varies according to the location. So if you're taking it in New York, it will cost something different to what it does if you're taking it in Cambodia or in India or Australia, wherever. So it depends really on the costs of running the course. So again, check the centre's websites, and they'll provide details of how much it costs for different types of courses. And the minimum requirements to take a CELTA course: you should be 18 years old or over. Typically, candidates are older than that, mostly post-graduation, so 21 and above. You should have a standard of education which is equivalent to that required for entry into higher education. So the kind of qualification that would allow you to join a university or college course. In UK terms, that would be A-levels, so the exams you take at the age of 18. And your English level should be a high C1, so C1 plus or C2. And again, that's very important. If you're going to be teaching groups of learners who are upper intermediate on the course, you need to be at a level that allows you to do that, which is C1 plus or C2. It's not usually necessary to take an exam to prove that. It's assessed by your trainers during the application process, the written application and the interview. Sometimes they may ask you to take a language exam or provide an exam certificate to demonstrate that. So the help that's available to you as a potential candidate and then as an applicant: So on our public website, again, cambridgeenglish.org, you'll find various blog posts. So there's one, 5 ways CELTA will help your career. Tells you a bit about what people have done, why it will improve your job prospects. And another one about preparing for your interview and preparing for your course. So let's say you've applied and you've been offered you're going through the application process to take the CELTA. This will give you some advice on preparing for your interview and thinking ahead to what's going to happen on the course. And now as well, there are 3 modules available which can inform your decision in the first case, Introduction to the CELTA course, and give you a bit of a head start before you go on to the course in starting to think about and preparing you for some of the topics that are going to come up. So I'll show you in a moment where you can access these. But yeah, the Introduction to the CELTA course gives an in-depth overview of what happens, how it all works on a CELTA course. The second one, Introduction to Language Teaching and Learning, gives some of that background information about how people learn languages, how languages can be taught effectively. And Introduction to Language Awareness is looking more at the systems of language, things like vocabulary, grammar, phonology, and some of the basics of those that will give you, as I say, a bit of a head start before you go on to the course. So they're really useful. They're freely available. You just have to register to take them. So if you go onto the Cambridge website and go to Preparing for CELTA, resources to help you prepare for your course, and there you'll see the 3 modules and the button Find Out More and register for access to the modules. And then you just put in some basic information and you'll get access to those, and they're really useful things to take when you're, as I say, the first one, when you're deciding to take a CELTA course, make sure you understand that it's the right course for you. And the second ones, once you've applied or while you're applying, will give you a bit sort of a beginning of an understanding of these things. There's also the CELTA Course, 2nd edition, a course book. It's used on some courses, but by no means all. And it covers a lot of the topics. It can be a useful companion while you're studying. So thinking of the whole experience, why would you take CELTA? What's good about it? First thing that people mention is the recognition. It helps you applying for jobs after you've completed the course. Once you've got the qualification, it will help you get a good job. The hands-on teaching practice is what gives you that confidence, develops your confidence, so you can go straight into the classroom and be ready to start teaching. You get the feedback and the development as you're going through the teaching practice cycle. You're constantly getting feedback and offered tips and suggestions on how you can do things, and that really brings you on very quickly in your teaching. Working together with your fellow trainees and with your trainers is usually a very good experience. People develop very strong kind of bonds with their fellow trainees. You share a lot of tips and advice and feedback, and get to know each other well. And the trainers are extremely supportive, extremely knowledgeable, and very supportive of the trainees as you're working on the course. So it's quite an intensive experience. It's challenging, but it's extremely worthwhile. So that's probably the most common feedback we get at the end of courses from candidates, is that it was hard work, but very much worthwhile, and they felt enormous benefit from it and enjoyed the experience as a whole. So link there to cambridgeenglish.org to find further information about CELTA and the links to those pre-course modules that I mentioned. But that's a very brief overview of how CELTA works and why you should consider doing it now. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Hand over, I think, to Brian.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, I can vouch for everything you were saying there. I did my CELTA course in Colombia many, many years ago. and I found it to be really stressful for that month. But once the month was over, I was very, very glad that I did it. So it's a course that I really do believe in, not just because we offer it. If someone was considering it, doing it somewhere else, I would still recommend the course. I really think it's very much worth the effort. So Tim has just told us about the course in general. Like I said, I think it's a great course wherever you take it. But there are some things that make the course unique here at ACE. The first one is maybe not a positive as far as our management is concerned, but our courses are a bit smaller than the average course size around the world. So even though trainers everywhere that I've ever met are very supportive, we have the time to provide that extra support here at ACE because our average course size is more in the 7 to 10 candidate range, as opposed to where I took it in Colombia. We had 18 trainees on the course. So you just get more time with each trainer. We have more time to check in on the trainees and make sure that everyone is doing well and things are coming along okay. So it's really a benefit for the trainees on the course to have that slightly smaller course size. Something else that no one else can replicate, our students here in Cambodia are fantastic. They're really enthusiastic, really a joy to teach. So the course is the same everywhere, but you only get the Cambodian students here in Cambodia. So that's something that trainees always really enjoy. Our location, if you choose the face-to-face course, we're in Siem Reap, just down the road from Angkor Wat. So a great location. Not that you're going to have a whole lot of time during the course for sightseeing. It's a pretty intense 4 weeks for the face-to-face course. But still, you can get away, on a Saturday, go out to the temples and look around a bit. And our price is very competitive. We're $1,700 for the face-to-face courses, $1,600 for online, which is, Tim mentioned New York. I guarantee you'd pay a lot more than that in New York for a CELTA course. But even in the region, it's a fairly reasonable price. Our training approach is similar to other centers around the world. It's a very practical course, so you're getting that hands-on training right from the very first day. You get a chance to get into the classroom. It's not assessed on the first day, but a chance to try some things out. We've got that mix of the input sessions with the teaching practice, and you're always getting constructive feedback. We want to make sure everybody who puts in the work can get through the course successfully. So we're just giving you that feedback to make sure that we're helping you improve, regardless of where you're starting at. If you have lots of experience, you're bringing a lot to the table, but there are still areas for improvement. And if you're new to teaching, kind of a blank slate, it's a good chance to get those habits right from the start. So either way, it's always constructive feedback to give. We give really detailed guidance the whole way, from the start of the course. But like Tim said, we pull back the support and give a bit more independence as the course goes on. So at the start, we're telling you what to do, and we want to see if you can do it. By the end, if everything's going well, if you can handle it, we want to see what you can do on your own, and then we still give some tips so you can do it even better. But that way, when the course is over, you're ready to step into a classroom without us standing over your shoulder, and you have that confidence. You can see here just a sample of part of our feedback sheet. So at the start of the course, just these few things that are not grayed out that we're looking at. So just a few simple points, making sure that learners are involved and things like that. And then as the course goes on, we look at a few more criteria and a few more and a few more. And by the end, we're looking at everything. So it's a very nicely staged approach where it's not too overwhelming at the start. We just expect you to show what you can do once you're ready to handle that. Experiences of candidates here at ACE have been very positive. We've received 5-star ratings from our graduates, people who've got the CELTA certificate from us, average 9.5 out of 10 as far as ratings go. But more than that, if you want to look at some actual testimonials, you can go to our website, CELTACambodia.org, and you can read some specific feedback from trainees. Here are just a few photos. You can see this photo on the left. Those are 4 of our trainees in the back, and then the teaching practice students in the front there. So most of these pictures are actually teaching practice students, not trainees. But the students make a big part of the experience for the trainees. So Tim mentioned the 3 modes of delivery. Here at ACE, we don't offer the mixed mode. Just in our experience, most people who can come here and commit to a face-to-face course want to do the whole course face-to-face, and those who want to work during the course want to do the part-time course part-time. So those are the 2 options that we currently offer. So the face-to-face course is full-time, 4 weeks. So you're studying Monday to Friday, roughly 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but then there's lesson planning, assignments outside of that time as well. Online is designed so that you can work during the course, or you could have other commitments, as long as you're free on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, and then on Saturdays, so you can join the live sessions, the live teaching practice, and then work on some other things when it fits your schedule during the week. That can work well. Either way, you're teaching real students, you're being observed live, you're getting that constructive feedback. So it's really just about what fits well with your schedule and your interests. We do make sure that in our feedback in the face-to-face course, we think about how could you have adapted a lesson so it could be delivered effectively if it had been online. And if it's an online course, we're always mentioning in the feedback, if that had been face-to-face, how might you have set it up differently? So I think if you're planning to teach exclusively online, it does make sense to take the online course. But we'll do what we can to make sure that the training applies in either context. So if you think you're mostly teaching on, online, but the face-to-face fits your schedule better, we'll still make sure that it prepares you for both. The application process is pretty straightforward for us. We've got our website, CELTACambodia.org. Here's a screenshot of the website, and up in the upper right corner, you see the Apply Now button. It's down on the left corner as well. So you just click on that. If you have any questions, just send them in to CELTA@acecambodia.org, and we can help you out if there's anything you're not sure of. The application form can be filled out on a computer or on your phone. And then if everything looks okay there, we'll send you a pre-interview language awareness task, just to see what you already know about parts of speech, tenses, vocabulary, maybe see what your teaching ideas are. But that's low pressure. Don't feel any stress about that. We don't expect you to know all the grammar in the world before the course or even after the course. We're always going to let you know what you're going to teach a few days before you teach it. So if you're teaching a lesson on present perfect, you've got a few days to go home, do the research, come in, ask the tutors questions if you're not sure. So as long as you know what you're going to teach when you teach it, that's what's important. But this is just to get a sense of what you already know going into the course. And also if there's any question about your language proficiency, just to make sure you're at that high C1 to C2 level. And then once you've submitted that, we'll have a brief online interview, typically about 30 minutes, where we can answer any questions that you have and just make sure that you know what you're signing up for, because the course is pretty big investment of time and money and effort. So we want to make sure that it's the right fit for you. So we'll go through that in the online interview. But since you're in this session right now, you probably already have a pretty good idea about whether it's the right course for you. And then our upcoming course dates. You've got some time to think about most of these, but we do have an online course starting on Saturday, May 2nd. So if you're interested in that one, get your application in very, very soon. And then we have a June course in Siem Reap. We do need to get things finalized for that pretty quickly as well. So if you're interested in face-to-face in June or online this Saturday, get your applications in. If you're interested in those other courses, you can see the dates. You've got a bit more time to think it over, but still doesn't hurt to put in an application. We can have the interview and you can make a final decision later. Doing the interview is free, doesn't commit you to anything. So there's no harm in putting in an application. You can see the contact hours again there. So these are the upcoming dates. And since we've got not too many people here today, I think it's good to leave some time for questions. So I'll leave my part there and I'll pass it back to Carolyn.
So I think that comes to an end of our sessions today, and a big thank you to our speakers for their insightful and valuable sharings today. Thank you all for coming and joining us for this webinar session. I hope you found today's webinar useful and informative. So as I mentioned, if you have any further questions, you have any doubts, feel free to send us any emails. So we try to respond to your questions as soon as possible. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next, maybe in the future events. Have a great evening, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tim.
No problem. Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
Okay.
Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yes, you too. Thanks.